Today, what we're going to be talking about is the number one biggest problem that I see when you have multiple different restaurant locations. So, as I go through this, I'm going to show you what that problem is and exactly what you can do about it to make things better. So, let's dive in here. So, one of the biggest things that restaurant owners face is that they end up getting sucked back down into the business. They end up basically having trouble in doing the owner functions, right? So they end up, filling in shifts or maybe picking up for their managers. They might end up doing all of those different things and they don't have time to work on the things such as building their sales, building their profits, expanding to more locations and scaling the business. And so there's a little diagram that basically I put together as I was meeting both with my own management team and some clients. Basically, let me draw this out for you. So the way that I look at it is that there's a few different levels in an organization, right? So we'll start down here with our front line. Actually, I'm just going to move this over here. So we've got our front line, and yes, my writing and drawing is absolutely terrible. Just bear with me. I promise this will be good. So front line, next we have our supervisors. Above that, we have our management. Above that, we have a regional manager, which is typical if you have typically 3 to 5 locations or beyond. You'll have a regional manager that will replace you. And then there's the ownership. Now, if you only have 2 locations or if you have one and you're trying to picture what this is going to be like, you will probably function as the regional manager role when you first start out. So here's the thing. What normally ends up happening for multi-unit restaurant owners is instead of the front line staying in their lane and doing the things that they should be doing, making sure all the standards are met, making sure customers are served well, everything's done properly, instead of all the operations normally happening the way that it should be, typically there is a little bit of an issue that happens. And it typically is within the management ranks, but the evidence actually shows up when their performance goes a level down. So what ends up happening is that because the front line, they don't do things the way they should. Maybe, there's not enough of them. Maybe they're calling in sick. Maybe they're not completing their cleaning duties, like whatever the case might be. What ends up happening is that your supervisors, your more senior people, the people that have been around a long time, that know what they're doing, they end up, instead of trying to help people get better, basically they end up just kind of going down and fixing those problems themselves. So really, we're paying people more to basically go down and do a job that's below them. And then when this happens, guess what? The supervisors are just glorified frontline people, which means your managers, instead of focusing on making the business better, doing all your scheduling, ordering, like all the things that they should be doing and helping the business grow, what they are doing instead is actually then being frontline supervisors. They're there all the time, just making sure everything goes right on an operational level. So they start doing that. Well, then guess what happens after that? Either you or the regional manager, you end up having to come down and do some of the management work for them, right? So what happens is that you end up stepping in, maybe taking over hiring, taking over the training. Maybe you step in and you're doing some more employee meetings. Maybe you're doing more of the frontline marketing or like store level marketing. Maybe you're doing all of those things. And so all of a sudden, the regional manager or you as an owner can't focus on your job, which is high level. How do we grow this thing? Looking at all the numbers. So basically then you as an owner end up being more of a regional manager if you have this many levels in your organization. So the reality is that there's actually a problem, which is down here in this area. Let me put some color on that. It's down here in this area, but it is felt everywhere throughout the organization. And so what happens is that because we are all out of sorts, we are all working a level down, we are inefficient. That means you as a business owner aren't able to focus on growing. You're not able to focus on your profitability. You're not able to focus on what comes next in your business. Instead, you are stuck surviving and just trying to make it through. You are stuck just trying to get day to day, make sure that people get served, make sure your standards are upheld. And when that is going on, you cannot grow as a business because you're all out of whack. So basically what needs to happen is that We need to actually get our frontline crew actually functioning here in this level, and we actually want to get them on a track to start taking over a little bit more of their supervisor's job. So we get some people moving from the front line, get them moving up. And then your supervisors, they can perform here, but actually start to take on more responsibilities for the manager. And then all of a sudden your managers can start taking on more responsibility and move up. And the same goes here. And so you can focus on growing, like, there we go, growing the restaurant business. So how do you do that? Now, that is an excellent question. Now, there's usually a few reasons why this happens. It's either because the people on the front line either are not the right people, there's either not enough of them, they might not be trained properly. And the other one is, even if all those things are true and they, you do have enough of them, they are trained, they're good people, stuff like that, they're the right fit. Sometimes they're not managed well. So what I usually see is that managers don't know how to manage, so they end up dropping down and doing work themselves because they don't get that their job is not actually to do anymore. That's probably one of the biggest things that I notice for young managers or new managers, is that they were successful earlier in their career by doing more. How did they get promoted? Well, they were the best at what they did. Well, guess what? When you get into management, it's no longer about how good you can do things. It's about how good you can get your team to do things, right? And I talk to this with managers all the time, and I tell them, guys, there's no way that you can outwork this problem. There are not enough hours in the day that you can outwork all of the deficiencies of all of your people throughout the entire business. There is zero way that you can do that. So the only choice that's left is to get better at what you're doing. You need to become a better leader, a better manager, right? So once you do those things, you can make sure that your team functions better. So where the issue is, generally frontline, but I also see it a lot in the supervisor and management ranks. And if you fix these things, then you start your organization on a trajectory where it can grow, your sales go up, your profits go up, you can give everyone raises, and becomes a destination for people to want to come and work at. But not only that, you can grow locations, you can expand forward. But if you do not solve this, what I see is people from going, from 1 to 2 to 3 to bankruptcy. I see this way too often because all of a sudden, even the owner, as a regional manager, was always able to handle things when he had one location, or she had one location, was able to handle things. Something came up, no problem, I got it. Hey, need me to fill a shift? Got it, no problem. Hey, piece of equipment's down, no problem. Let's work on it. They were there, they could handle all those problems. Now they've went from a doer role as well to one where there's no way they can be even at 3 places at once. There's no way that they can outwork the problem of, say, 50 to 70 employees, right? It is a totally different skill set to be able to do that. But when we get it right is when we unlock the ability to scale restaurants to 5, 10, 20, 100 locations and beyond. That is the skill set and the systemization that needs to be in place to be able to scale. And the number one reason why most restaurant businesses grow enough based on the owner's efforts and then stop growing, because they haven't shifted out of the operator mindset and into the owner mindset, the same way that your management are still glorified frontline employees, which means that there's usually a deficiency in the front line, which causes the whole thing to crumble to the ground. So what you can do now, take a look at your organization. My guess is if you start looking for this over the next couple of days, you are going to find examples of this in your business where a supervisor is stepping in, a manager is stepping in for an issue that's caused somewhere else. And then because of that, they can't get the things that they need to do done, which holds the entire organization back. So look out for it. You will find it. And this is exactly what we need to fix to unlock our potential and be able to move forward in the business. So once you find it, we got to fix it. So either you can find ways to do that on your own, or feel free to let me know. Happy to help, happy to dive into this, because this is exactly what we do with multi-unit restaurants every single day. So if that is you and you want some help, shoot us a message. We've got lots of free resources, calendar links. You can book in a free chat with us to see if it's a fit. But basically, I just don't want you to stay where you are. And if you're not at multi-unit locations yet, I would rather you be prepared so you don't go into this and end up going under because of it. All right, guys, Pleasure to chat with you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something.